is finally here. The New York Jets have their final preseason contest against the New York Giants, which means cut down day is approaching. The New York Jets will take on the 49ers on Monday Night Football in a little over 2 weeks. Who should Jet fans watch in today's contest? Who should they keep their eye on? Who's going to make the roster? Who's not? It's an NY Flight Jets talk, and we are live.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Welcome in, everyone. We are here for our second pre-game show of the year. It is a Saturday evening, and in a little under 2 hours, the Jets will face off against the New York Giants for their final preseason contest of the year. I'll be taking your calls, questions, everything. We will be breaking down today's game. If you want to call into the show, pin comment in the chat. That's much appreciated. Also, you could submit your questions for me to answer. Before we get into what we have on tap for today, let's say what's up, everyone in the chat. Terrence, good to see you. Appreciate the support. Dano, good to see you. Armand, good to see you. All right, so before we get into, breaking down today's contest against the New York Giants, I want to talk about the ongoing Haason Reddick situation, the elephant in the room. We're going to go right into the Reddick situation shortly, but, I didn't mention it last stream. It happened 2 streams ago. I really just want to thank you guys for 1,000 subscribers. It really means a lot. We're going to keep the channel growing, though, so if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed and make sure you smash that like button. It is much appreciated, but let's get right into it. On Friday, NFL insider Josina Anderson actually reported what she thinks the current mindset of the Jets front office is in this Haason Reddick situation, and she said she thinks the Jets front office has faith that it will work itself out. Obviously, it's crazy to think that as he's held out all the way through OTs, basically over 3 months now, and then day 32, if you're just counting training camp's officially over now. Obviously, Connor Hughes of SNY reported that Reddick is looking for an extension in the range of $25 to $28 million a year. Just looking, if you look at the current defensive lineman, if he were to get paid $28 million a year, he would slide in right around in that, it would make him it would be within the top 5 highest paid edge rushers. The 5th highest paid edge rusher actually is Myles Garrett with an AAV of $25 million a year, the highest paid of which is 49ers edge Nick Bosa with an average annual salary of $34 million a year. You look at Reddick, he's had over 50.5 sacks these past 4 seasons, surpassed double-digit sacks the past 4 seasons. Don't get me wrong, he's very talented, but I mean, this is not what the Jets want dragging into the season. I personally, unfortunately, I think this goes into the season. The Jets have made it clear they're not going to pay Reddick until he shows up to Florham Park. Reddick has made it clear he is not going to show up to Florham Park until he gets paid. This is causing for a gridlock situation for the Jets. But when training camp wrapped up, New York Jets insider Rich Cimini of ESPN, great friend of the show, we've had him on several times. He revealed what could be a turning point for this holdout, an important date, if you will, saying, quote, "I would think September 2nd or 3rd are important days to watch out for. Those are the pressure points when these holdouts typically end. If it doesn't end by then, Reddick will probably go into the regular season, and anything is possible." That is definitely not what the Jets want. Obviously, we have some young players behind Reddick in the names of Michael Clemens, Will McDonald, obviously Jermaine Johnson's probably the biggest one there. Then you have Takk McKinley, who I think, we'll get into that later, I think he's already earned himself a roster spot. However, I think Reddick is a key part of this Jets team. If the Jets want to win, I think we need Reddick. So honestly, I'd be lying if I said I really want to give him something in that $25 to $28 million range. I'd feel more comfortable with a bit of a sweetener, give him some incentives there. It's just rough. I mean, we did not expect this to go in the season. It started off all from missing OTAs. Jet fans started to, quote at the time, overreact a little by saying, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now the real question becomes if he's got minicamp. He's not at minicamp. Oh, he'll be at training camp. He'll be at training camp. Don't worry. No, he missed all of training camp. Oh, don't worry. He'll report for the preseason. And today the Jets have their final preseason game. what does this mean? I mean, this is not what just the Jets front office wants to look like as a whole. Obviously, he formally requested a trade out of the Jets organization, and it would be dumb for the Jets to grant that trade, and I don't think they'll grant that trade request either. As no one's going to want to pick up the Jets problem. No one is going to want to, like I said, pick up that Jets problem. He currently has no trade value right now. That is the thing. That is why the Jets better not grant his trade request and trade him. But if Samini's projection is right there, the Jets have about around that 10-day kind of range to figure something out with Reddick. If we're having this same conversation next week of still looking for a contract, I think this is going to drag into the regular season. And as Samini said, quote, anything is possible if this goes into the regular season. So personally, I think we just got to bang this deal out. We got to get it out of the way because let's be honest, we could all say, oh, we want, okay, yeah, he's a baby, blah, 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 blah. He's all he wants is his money. Yes, that might be right, but if the Jets want to win, Reddick is a key part of this defense. They lost Bryce Huff. Reddick is expected to fill those shoes. Without Reddick, obviously Huff's gone. Without Reddick, I mean, geez, now we're looking at obviously Jermaine Johnson had a successful year, but Takk McKinley had a great camp. But it's like, do we rely on a Takk McKinley, a Will McDonald, a Michael Clemens to really step in to a starting role and help fill the shoes of Michael Clemens? I really not Michael Clemens, Hassan Reddick. I really don't feel comfortable with that. I don't think anyone on this Jets roster really could fill the shoes of Reddick. Like I said, 50.5 sacks over the past 4 seasons, had 16 in 2022, finished 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting that season. Like, no one on this Jets defense combined, I don't think could really fill his shoes. So whatever needs to happen to get this deal done, I'm willing to do. But anyways, that's it for the Reddick Talk. We are here to do one thing and one thing only, and it is to give you all the players you should watch in today's New York Giants versus New York Jets contest. So I'm going to start off an article that I put out, New York Jets roster battles, 4 bubble players to watch versus Giants. It just came out at 5:07 p.m., so less than about 31 minutes ago it came out. And some of the players I put Eric Watts. Eric Watts is, like I said, I think he's had a great camp so far. He's definitely turned heads. The Jets gave him the most guaranteed money out of anyone in the UDFA class this season, and he seemed to show them that, okay, I deserve the most guaranteed money. Watts is competing for a roster spot though against UDFA Braden McGregor, who's played exceptionally well throughout camp in the preseason. Veteran Jalen Holmes and Takk McKinley of which I mentioned. I think McKinley's already solidified himself as with a roster spot. I think McKinley has looked exceptionally well throughout camp and preseason. People are forgetting he was brought in for a mini camp tryout. He was one of 6 players brought in for a mini camp tryout, only one of which was signed to a 1-year deal, kind of a 1-year prove-it deal, but not really even a prove-it deal. It was kind of just, a training camp tryout, really. And he's impressed. I think he's earned himself a roster spot. So I think Watts is definitely a name to watch at that defensive end position. He's played 61 snaps throughout the Jets' first 2 preseason games, recording a pressure, 2 assists, a solo tackle, along with a pass rushing grade of 58.1 per PFF. The main thing I think Jets fans should look for out of Watts is I think he needs to show success against the run. I think that's the main thing. Obviously, yes, he's showed success against the pass. I want him to show, consistent success really against the run. Once he shows that, I think he's earned himself a roster spot. Watts, however, has looked great, though. At worst case scenario, I think he's a practice squad guy. This 53-man roster prediction, I think these are guys the Jets just don't want exposed to the waiver wire. Maybe they go with a guy if they really like Izzy, but they don't feel like they should carry 4 running backs. Maybe they're just like, hey, we got to do it. We want to keep him. He's not someone we want exposed to waivers. Maybe they keep him over a guy like Watts. I don't know. The Jets could do a lot of interesting things with this roster. It's a good problem to have. There's a lot of talent. I think a lot of what it comes down to, if Watts makes the roster or not, is how many defensive linemen do the Jets want to carry? I think that is the main question. How many defensive linemen do the New York Jets want to carry? Personally, I think it's 10, but tomorrow, 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll actually have Robbie Sabo of Jets X Factor coming on, in which we will give our final 53-man roster prediction. So it's going to be really interesting to see who we throw in there. Definitely recommend tuning into that tomorrow. Another undrafted free agent who I think Jet fans should keep their eye on, defensive tackle Leonard Taylor. When the Jets signed Leonard Taylor is an undrafted free agent, right away Jet fans were like, oh my God, this guy has the best shot to make the roster out of all the undrafted free agents. And I was right with them. He going and entering his final season of college, he was projected to be a first-round pick. Obviously, that's early, but his final year at Miami, he really struggled. He got injured a couple games. Still, though, he was projected to be like a third or fourth round pick. Somehow went undrafted. The Jets picked him up. He struggled a bit to start camp. He's picked it up though. He's played pretty well throughout the preseason. Played 61 snaps, recording a sack and 2 pressures while posting a pass rushing grade of 68.6 per PFF. Obviously, when you look at the inside of this defensive line, the front 4 tackles seem to be pretty much locked in with Lecky Fotu, Quinnen Williams, Solomon Thomas, Javon Kinlaw. After that, though, it becomes a little dicey. I personally think the Jets will carry 5 tackles. After that, you have Bruce Hector, Tanzel Smart, Jalen Twyman, who the Jets signed from the UFL. I don't think he really has a shot at making the roster. And then Taylor. Personally, I look at those guys. Obviously, Hector had that great first preseason game. I'm going with Taylor there. You gotta obviously watch tonight. This is a crucial game for Taylor. Like I said, he's another one. He's recorded the sack, 2 pressures. If he wants to earn a spot on the roster, show success against the run. I need that run blocking grade up. He has a grade per PFF run blocking grade of 41.7. He showed tremendous success, like I said, against the pass. But if he wants to solidify a spot on this Jets roster, I really think it is, adjusting to that, taking that next step in terms of run stopping. So Taylor's definitely a really interesting one. As of now, I do have him making the roster. All right, moving on, we have Brandon Codrington. Just to be clear, I was a fan of Codrington before last week. I was a fan of Codrington before the preseason even started. I was a fan of Codrington when training camp started. I thought he had a legit chance to make the roster as a kick returner, and he showcased his ability last week against the Panthers, recording a 63-yard kick return. Obviously, there's the talk he's considered undersized for cornerbacks. He just stands at 5'9", but his path to the roster is through special teams, and he's shown why he earns a spot on this roster. He's the NFL's highest graded kick returner this preseason with a grade of 80.5 per PFF. He's also the second highest graded punt returner with a grade of 71.3. He has 3 punt returns for 59 yards. I think the main thing, I've said it time in and time out, if they want to use a spot, same goes for Irv Charles, but Codrington as well. Do the Jets want to use a roster spot on someone who is solely going to contribute on special teams like Codrington would? Are they going to want to do that, or do they want to go with a returner, someone of the likes Malachi Corley, Isaiah Davis, Xavier Gibson? They're already going to make the roster because of their ability at their their primary position. Do they want to use a spot on a player who's solely going to return kicks and punts like Codrington? Personally, I think he's worth it. I think he's a very electrifying player. If they put him on the practice squad, he will not be. If they cut him and they put him, he will not make it through the waiver process. He will get picked up right away just from his tape on the Panthers game. Believe me, with these new kickoff rules, teams are always looking for players like Codrington. I think in order for him to really lock up his spot on the roster, what he needs to do is literally just show success, similar to what he did against the Panthers. He even showed success returning kicks and punts against the Commanders. If he could just show some success doing that tonight, he will earn himself a roster spot. Trust me. And if he doesn't, he will get picked up by a team right away. Right away. That is what's going to happen. Before we keep it going, let's say what's up to the rest of the people in the chat. Dano, referring to my 1,000 subs. I still can't believe I won the signed photo. Big thanks again, brother. Of course, Dano. I will definitely get that to you as soon as possible. Wild Wave, good to see you in the chat. Addison, good to see you in the chat. Let's see. Dano Sweetener would be splendid. Yeah, here's the thing. Reddick has made it clear he wants that $25 to $28 million range. Like I said, it's definitely a lucrative amount of money, but if the Jets want to win, they need Reddick there. The Jets want to win. They need Reddick there. So I think that's the main thing. They need to get that done. Armand says they should fully guarantee the $14.5 million, give him $10 to $12 million as a signing bonus and add incentives to get up to $22 to $25 million. Armand, I would absolutely love that. I think that would be one of the best case scenarios, especially if we get it resolved before the season starts. He's just stood pat. Him and his agent have just stood pat. They want that $25 to $28 million range. However, Antoine Staley said it when he was on, and he made a very good point. It's like Redick has missed all of training camp. He met his teammates at his introductory press conference. Even if he were to report before the season starts, he's probably going to be used as a situational guy. I mean, you look at these guys like I mentioned, Tack, McKinley, these guys. He's going to have to get used as a situational guy. He hasn't even learned the system yet. So it's like we've already dug ourselves in too deep of a hole. But as soon as he gets here, that would be the best possible scenario. Dano says, "Look at that fresh cut on the kid." Thank you, Dano. I appreciate it. Yes, I did get a cut earlier this week. Let's see. Armand, the Jets are not the only team dealing with this type of situation. Look at the Bengals and Cowboys. I think Jamar Chase finally reported. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Chase reported. And then with the Cowboys, yeah, CeeDee Lamb, that's not nice. But then look at the 49ers, who the Jets are playing week 1. You have Ayuk in that bubble there, talks of him going to the Steelers, Commanders. And then you have Trent Williams, their starting tackle, who's holding out. So it's, we're not the only team dealing with it, but it's a new generation. I'll say that right now. It's in terms of players really, really, really looking for their money. Let's see. Dano, McKinley, 20 career sacks. McKinley, yeah, 20 career sacks. Here's the thing with McKinley. He was selected in the first round of the 2016 NFL draft. There were high hopes for him coming out of college, coming out of UCLA. Never really lived up to those expectations, but hey, it is never too late to resurrect your career. This is his opportunity. He had experience playing with Olbrich down in Atlanta. Hey, I think this is the year where McKinley actually gets to show, okay, hey, I have that first round value, and I don't think Jet fans should be surprised if we see that out of McKinley. Yeah, he was brought in for a minicamp trial, but you got to keep in mind he still was a first round pick. Definitely got to keep that in mind. Let's see. Wildwave, I'd rather keep our young defensive line in risk tech. So yeah, that's before we get to your rest of your questions. What I think about Tack, as I said, I don't think he'll play today. I think the main thing that Jet fans should really watch out for is McGregor versus Watts. I think it's going to come down to those guys. I think Tack's making the roster. I have to disagree with you there, Wildwave. What he has shown, he's shown exceptional ability throughout everything. Training camp, preseason. He's looked great. You can't pass up on a guy like McKinley. Can't do it. Armand, I could see the Jets instead of cutting a player because they know they will lose them, is that they trade them for a late round pick. Something I've said, if the Jets were to, well, first off, I'm gonna kind of refer this to the cornerback position. You look at the cornerback position, you have the trio, and then after that, you have Eccles, Quantez Stiggers, JBC, and now the possibility of Codrington making the roster. Codrington were to make the roster, that's 7 cornerbacks. Someone who I said I've gotten ripped apart for it because he has experience playing gunner. He had a great game against the Dolphins 2 years ago, is Brendan Eccles. His contract's expiring. Maybe they look to deal him for a late round pick. That is something I'd find. I wouldn't, I would be surprised if they did it, but that's something I think would actually not be a bad move for the Jets if they want to keep a guy like Codrington. It's gonna be really interesting. Wildwave, the kicker can get us a pick. Izzy, maybe just need to showcase him. The kicker can get us a pick. Seibert, I don't know. If he kicks another 50-yarder today, maybe he can get us a pick. It's going to be a really, really interesting game for Izzy because Allen and Davis are probably, I'd say, are going to sit out tonight, and then Hall obviously will be sitting out. It's gonna be really interesting to see what Izzy could do. I personally think, I'm not going to say anything. I don't think he deserves a spot on the roster, but I could definitely see the Jets putting him on the roster just because, his lightning speed. And I think if they put him on waivers, someone might take a shot on him. So he's going to be really interesting to watch today. I think if he has a good game, though, I think he'll get himself a spot on the roster. I don't think he deserves it, but I think the Jets really seem to like what they see out of him so far. They know the great thing to remember too, per Dom C, is the following players could be pushed right to the practice squad without being subject to waivers: McKinley, Firkser, Hansen, Tenzel Smart, Sam McGuavin. That's huge. Shout out Dom C. So let's go one by one. McKinley. I think McKinley's going to make the roster. Whether you guys like it or not, I think McKinley will make the Jets roster. He's played exceptionally well throughout preseason and training camp. Firkser, I don't think Firkser's even going to make the practice squad, honestly. I think he's just going to get cut. I think they'll carry one tight end on the practice squad, and that will be Zach Kuntz. Jake Hansen's a real interesting one because he could play both guard positions and center as well. He had a great end to last year. I think it's going to be interesting between him. I think at I think they'll carry 10 offensive linemen and 10 defensive linemen. I think for that 10th spot, it's going to come down to Hansen versus Laval. Right now, I'd give it to Laval. Played 100% of the every offensive snap against the Panthers. Plays all 5 positions versus Hansen. I think Hansen's a guy they could probably stash on the practice squad. Call him up anytime. David, you must come from smart parents. Appreciate it. David, Stack, hit that like button. Support Connor. Stack, I appreciate everyone. Hit that like button. Make sure you were subscribed. Anything I get that's supportive, it's greatly appreciated. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Good to see you in the chat. David, a lot of great information. Go Jets, David. I appreciate that. R&R, hope our third stringers crush the Giants. Third stringers, JTS. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because I think Daniel Jones played in the Giants' second preseason game. I don't think he'll play today, but it's still gonna be interesting in terms of third stringers on the Jets side of it. I think Peasley Martinez is something. I joked. I say it's been a dogfight for that practice squad spot. I mean, both of them, they had that fine first preseason game, but the second one, against the Panthers was disgusting. It's gonna be interesting though because I think they're gonna carry to start. I think Travis is in for a full redshirt season. So I think they'll carry Rodgers and Tyrod, obviously, on the active roster. And then the practice squad, I think it's between Peasley or Martinez, but it's going to be interesting. Jump to MM's comment. Who do you favor for QB3, Peasley or Martinez? So perfect, staying with the topic right there. If I had to favor one right now, I'd probably say Martinez just because he can move. Obviously, he had a ton of success in the UFL. I think it's tonight's game though. I think that's going to be the deciding factor. But if I had to make a decision right now, personally, I'd say Martinez just because he could, like I said, he can move. Let's see. Yeah, that's that's what I was saying. Yeah, 100%. I think Martinez right now is ahead of him, but the battle is riding on tonight's game. That is what's going to separate the two. That is what is going to separate the two. I think they've been pretty even, but it's gonna be interesting. A couple more things before we wrap here. Wanted to mention a few more players that keep your eye on. I know we mentioned Izzy briefly, but so far throughout the preseason, he's had 12 carries, 47 yards, and a touchdown. Currently at 100%. I'd say you could maybe even make I don't think Valladay's shown enough, but I think he's between 4th and 5th right now. 4th and 5th right now on the Jets. Obviously not 2nd or 3rd or first, but he's between 4th and 5th. It's going to be interesting, though, who they put ahead, him or I think Valladay will probably get cut, and Izzy, worst case scenario, is a practice squad guy, but this is his chance to really make a statement if I think he can earn a spot on this roster if he shows his lightning speed and great in the passing game and in the running game. I definitely think he has a shot. Jason Brownlee's another interesting one. He had a slow start to start training camp so far. Throughout preseason too. He's had 2 catches, 18 yards, and a touchdown. Personally, I think he's going to make the roster whether we like it or not. I think that's the answer. He's going to make it whether we like it or not. But a solid performance out of him would only give Jet fans more confidence. So I hope Brownlee has a nice game tonight. And then the final one I have is Brady McGregor. We mentioned him a little earlier. He's having a really solid preseason. He's the most pressures out of anyone on the defensive line with 5, and I think he has a chance. When all said and done, I think he's a practice squad guy. But again, never say never. We've seen the Jets do crazy things with this team. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do with this roster. There's so much talent. That's the thing. There's so much talent. You could go in any direction. If you want to get in on the conversation, pin comment to call in to the show. A couple more questions here before we wrap up. Let's go to Dano. Joe has been fantastic at shredding guys that aren't worthy of being traded for an entire pick by sending them out for conditional pick swaps. Maybe do that with Cyber because the kid is stellar in my opinion. Cyber, it's going to be – here's the thing. It's going to be interesting with Cyber. I mean, is a team going to want to give up a pick for a kicker? I feel like if they just cut him, a team will pick him up. But he could definitely be used as trade bait. And like I said, if the Jets want to really go with Codrington, I think Eccles is someone who could be used as trade bait as well. He obviously had that Dolphins game, which will always be remembered for. But a valuable piece in Eccles is he could play gunner too. But so could Sticker. I think Stickers could do some of the things Irv Charles does. So, I would consider Irv Charles definitely not a lock for the roster. Definitely not a lock for the roster entering tonight. Let's see. Dana, I'm MMLC. I see your comment. I'll get to that in a minute. Late 7th frame, mid 7th manifested. Hey, that's a win. For a kicker, that is a win. Move up in the draft in the 7th round, I don't care. That's still a win. Still a win. 1,000% David, I appreciate that. What's your favorite jersey color? Green, black, or white? Favorite jersey color. That's interesting. Honestly, what am I gonna? I like the white, but honestly, I'd say it's probably 3 out of 3. Black. We've had the blacks for a little. When they first came out, they were my favorite by far. I gotta go with the new greens. The old greens were terrible. The new greens though, absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. So if you ask me my power rankings, for the jerseys, I'd probably go white at 3, black at 2, green at 1. Those are my Jets jersey power rankings there for you, But yeah, I really appreciate all the support. We're gonna wrap in a few, so submit your final questions. Call-in link is pinned in the chat if you would like to get in the conversation. Like I said, I really appreciate all the support. Likes my rankings. Glad to see we agree there. Glad to see we agree there. But yeah, this is the game that really determines a lot of these players' futures between Leonard Taylor, Brandon McGregor, Izzy Abonaconda, Codrington, these guys I spoke about. It's gonna be a really interesting matchup. Obviously, there's no starters playing, which Salah came out and said that, and fans got disappointed pretty easily. So, hey, it is what it is. We gotta rock with what we're rocking with. But everyone, appreciate you watching, and as always, before we wrap up, we have a final question. Just got it in at the buzzer. Do you think Clemens is a lock? Do you think Clemens is a lock? I think Clemens is a lock, 1,000%. Salah came out and said something because he had to put on weight last offseason because they wanted him to slide in his depth at tackle position. So it's going to be interesting now that he knows he's going to play edge fully. You just got to hope out of him we could get what we got in his rookie season, where he's a rotational piece of this defense. But yeah, I think he's a lock no matter what. They know. I actually want Irv Charles out of here. Not enough versatility. Am I mean? LOL. Not at all. I completely agree with you there, Dano. Yeah, I wish God, I'm so upset Malik Taylor got injured. I thought he was gonna make the roster and be a difference maker for the Jets this year. Right now, though, I think the Jets there's a chance though, because I think Brownlee is probably gonna make the roster no matter what, and then you have obviously Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Xavier Gibson, Malachi, Lazard, Brownlee, and then after that, it's Malachi's probably the last lock, and then Brownlee. I'd say Brownlee's a lock though. It really depends. Are the Jets going to want to go with 6 or 7 receivers? That is the main thing that it comes down to. It's going to be a really interesting battle to watch. If I'm Joe Douglas right now though, I'm not wasting a roster spot on a player like Irv Charles who could only play gunner. Eccles has experience there. Isaiah Oliver has experience there, and I think Stickers could play there. Let's see. Terrence, I'm on the road traveling from Tampa to Fort Lauderdale, so I'm listening. Can't interact much. Terrence, I appreciate that you're listening. Have a safe trip there. Dano, great show, Connor. Will you and Matt have call-ins during your regular season pre-games? Yes, I actually don't think I've formally announced this on my show yet. There's been some rumblings on the other shows, but yes, for those who did not know, Matt O'Leary and I will be teaming up for pregame coverage this year. It will be simulcasted on both channels. And Dano, yes, we will be doing call-ins. It's probably going to start. We'll probably do our show for about 45 minutes to an hour, and it's going to start an hour and a half before kickoff every week. I think he'll do it the home opener, and I think one other week because I will be at 2 Jet games this year. So the 2 weeks I'm not there, he will hold it down for us. But Dano, yeah, really appreciate that. Like I said, for those who don't know, Matt O'Leary and I will be teaming up for pregame coverage this season, and we'll be simulcasting on both channels. Hit the like, Dano. I appreciate it. One last time, everyone, hit the like. Make sure you subscribe. Everyone, thank you guys for watching. And as always, JTS Jets, Jets, Jets.